Hey, it's me and I'm back for another video. This time I'm going to talk about the career of The Undertaker as he announces, not really announced, but he kind of implied that it was his last match against AJ Styles at Wrestlemania 36. So I'm just going to talk about The Undertaker and the career he had in the WWE for 30 years. I mean, he came into the WWE in Survivor Series 1990, and he might end his career at WrestleMania 36 last April with that amazing Boneyard match against AJ Styles. So, first of all, I think we all know The Undertaker was on his last legs, especially this past few years, and especially after losing the undefeated streak to Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30. He had some good matches. After losing the streak, he had those couple of matches with Brock the very next year, which I think it was good matches, but it wasn't like typical Undertaker streak matches, but it was good. It was a good solid brawl. And also he had that match against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 33. That's when we all thought he was going to retire, but he came back, did a match with Cena at WrestleMania 34. Then he was completely absent at WrestleMania 35. Then he came back with the mix of the Dead Man and the American Badass persona that he was known for a while. And he had that Boneyard match against AJ Styles at WrestleMania, this past WrestleMania. So let's start off with, where do we put The Undertaker on the all-time list? Because a lot of people grew up, being an Undertaker fan. A lot of fans, especially kids from the 90s, they remember The Undertaker as a scary figure. And he was kind of one of the most notable figures in professional wrestling during that time. That even people who doesn't know professional wrestling, doesn't watch professional wrestling, knows who The Undertaker is. So that's when you know how famous a wrestler is, if people who doesn't even watch wrestling that constantly knows who he was or who he is. So for me, I'm gonna put The Undertaker at around like top 10 wrestlers of all time. He's not top 5. He's not on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, in my opinion. Like that's on another level, but he's just right there. That's why I can say he's like a top 10 wrestler of all time. Because let us think about it. He never was the guy for a period of time. Like he was never the face of the company. He was never an Austin. He was never a Rock. He was never a Triple H. He was never a Cena. But he was always there. He was always on the main events, feuding with the top guys. Like he never dropped down from that main event spot. Like he was always there, but he wasn't the face of the company. He wasn't the franchise player. And let's talk about what was his peak. What was Undertaker's peak in terms of his prime? Because the early 90s he wasn't. Although he was competing for the WWE Championship, he pinned Hulk Hogan in 1991. He was in a high-profile feud with the Macho Man, and he had this classic Raw feud with Mankind, but that wasn't like his peak. Like he was kind of a mid-carder, upper mid-carder, and you notice the guys he faced off at WrestleMania during that time. Like it wasn't like main event caliber guys. It was Jimmy Snuka, it was Giant Gonzalez, it was Jake Roberts. Like it wasn't those main event caliber talent that he was working during the first years of the streak. And then let's move ahead to the Attitude Era, where he wasn't the face of the company, but he was a constant figure in the storylines. Remember the Ministry Undertaker? That was probably one of my favorite theme songs of all time, the Ministry Undertaker. And then he had that higher power storyline with Vince McMahon. And but that wasn't when he was at his peak physically, because he wasn't having these amazing matches. Like he was just there. He was a character during the Attitude Era, in my opinion. And then let's move ahead to when he became the American Badass during the Ruthless Aggression era. That was, I think, that was the lowest point of his career. That's why we don't remember his American Badass Day so much, because like that wasn't the Undertaker that we knew and loved. But he was still awesome then. He had that ladder match with Jeff Hardy for the WWE Championship, and he also had that great feud with Brock Lesnar that concluded in the bloody Hell in a Cell match during that period. But then again, his opponents at WrestleMania wasn't that legit. I mean, except for Ric Flair when he faced off at WrestleMania 18. So now we go to the Dead Man, the return of the Dead Man. And I think that was his peak, 2004 to 2013. That was peak Undertaker. That's when the streak became like his thing, you know, because back then the streak wasn't really being talked about. It wasn't being given that emphasis every WrestleMania. But starting 2005, starting that Orton match, that's when the streak became like this prestigious part of every WrestleMania. So it was Orton, and then Mark Henry faced on in that Buried Alive match, and then the next year he also had some World Heavyweight Championship reigns at that time. Because when you think of the Undertaker, you don't really think of the titles. He never was the guy that you would let him hold the title for a long period of time. Like, his character goes beyond the championships. Like, the championships doesn't define him as a wrestler and as a character. Like, he doesn't need a championship to have a storyline or a main event storyline. He doesn't need that. That's a great thing about the Undertaker. He's so great as a character. Like, some wrestlers, they need a title in order to be legitimate main event talent. But with the Undertaker, anyone who feuds with the Undertaker, they became a star after they feud with him. Guys like Orton, he became like the legend killer after his feud with the Undertaker. Guys like Edge solidified his claim as one of the greatest WWE superstars of all time when he had that great feud with the Undertaker in 2008 that concluded in that amazing Hell in a Cell match at SummerSlam. And then Shawn Michaels, probably his greatest match of all time was against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25 and 26. You could argue which one is better, but those matches with Shawn really put his stamp on the top 10 of all time list. Like, for me, that's just me. So that's when he became legit. That's when his best matches, wrestling wise, came from that point of period, that era during his dead man phase. So, and he had some good world title reigns and world title matches at WrestleMania. He had that solid match with Batista and then with Edge back-to-back years. So I think when we ask about what was his peak as a character, we can confidently say that his peak was during that Dead Man era, 2004 and 2013. So I'm just gonna share to you my favorite memory of the Undertaker, because I only started watching wrestling 2012. That's when I started watching wrestling regularly. I know who the Undertaker is even before that, but I wasn't an avid wrestling viewer. So this is probably my favorite Undertaker match of all time, because this is literally from the first ever wrestling pay-per-view that I watched, WrestleMania 28. It was in Miami. Hell in a Cell match against Triple H with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee. That match holds a special place in my heart, because that was one of the first matches I was really captivated in. I wasn't that was the first pay-per-view I ever watched And I remember the being so hyped with that promo, with that Metallica Memory Remains promo. That is still probably my favorite wrestling promo package of all time. It was Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, and Metallica. Doesn't even get better than that. I still remember the super kick to pedigree combo. I was super hyped with that, and then the tombstone to finish off the match. Still one of my favorite matches of all time. That Hell in a Cell match against Triple H. So, what's your opinion of The Undertaker? Is he one of the greatest wrestlers of all time for you? Maybe no, maybe yes. Just if you have anything to say about his career, if you have any violent reactions to what I said, comments is down below. You can always hit me up in the comment section, and always stay safe. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.